Imagine waking up tomorrow and the Amazon rainforest is gone. Not slowly dying, not shrinking over decades. Gone. Nearly 6 million square kilometers of rainforest vanished overnight. Where there were once endless green canopies, there is now dry, exposed land. Where rivers of moisture once rose from billions of leaves, there is only heat. At first, the world does not collapse. The sky is still blue. The air still feels breathable. Your phone still works. The lights still turn on. But invisible changes have already begun. Rain clouds stop forming where they once did. Rivers begin to shrink. Temperatures rise. Animals search for a home that no longer exists. And deep inside the atmosphere, one of Earth's most powerful natural systems has just been broken. So what would really happen if the Amazon rainforest disappeared tomorrow? And could humanity survive the world that comes after? The Amazon is not just a forest, it is a living machine. It stretches across 9 countries in South America, covering an area so large that from space, it looks like a green ocean. Inside it are rivers, wetlands, trees, insects, birds, mammals, fungi, and microorganisms, all connected in ways we still do not fully understand. The Amazon contains more than 10% of Earth's known terrestrial biodiversity. That means one forest holds a huge part of the planet's living library. Jaguars, poison dart frogs, harpy eagles, river dolphins, giant otters, millions of insects, and plants that may contain medicines we have not even discovered yet. But the Amazon does something even bigger. It helps regulate the climate. It stores enormous amounts of carbon in its trees, roots, soils, and vegetation. Some estimates suggest the wider Amazon system stores around 120 billion tons of carbon. Other studies place the total carbon stock even higher, around 150 to 200 billion tons. That carbon is not just a number. It is carbon that is currently locked away from the atmosphere. As long as the forest remains healthy, much of that carbon stays inside the ecosystem. But if the forest disappears, that storage system is destroyed, and Earth loses one of its most important climate stabilizers. You may have heard people call the Amazon the lungs of the Earth. You may have also heard that it produces 20% of the world's oxygen. But this is not really accurate. Yes, the Amazon produces oxygen through photosynthesis. Trees take in carbon dioxide, use sunlight to build sugars, and release oxygen. But forests also consume oxygen. Animals breathe. Microbes break down dead leaves and wood. Plants themselves use oxygen when they respire. So the Amazon does not simply pump huge amounts of extra oxygen into the atmosphere for humans to breathe. If it vanished tomorrow, we would not immediately suffocate. The oxygen level in the atmosphere would not suddenly crash. That is not the real nightmare. The real nightmare is slower, more complex, and far more dangerous. Because the Amazon is not just important for oxygen, it controls water, it stores carbon, it cools the land, it protects biodiversity, and it helps keep regional climate systems stable. So losing it would not feel like the air disappearing. It would feel like Earth's climate control system breaking. Now let's imagine the impossible happens. In a single day, the Amazon disappears. No trees, no canopy, no roots, no leaves releasing moisture into the air. The first effect would be silence. The calls of birds would vanish. The buzzing of insects would stop. The forest floor, once dark and humid, would be exposed to direct sunlight. Animals that depended on the canopy would have nowhere to go. Species that lived only in small regions of the Amazon could disappear almost instantly. Some animals might escape to nearby forests, but many would not. Because the Amazon is not just a place animals visit, it is their entire world. And for countless species, that world would be gone. The soil would also change quickly. Rainforest soil is often surprisingly thin and fragile. The forest survives because nutrients are constantly recycled through leaves, roots, fungi, and microorganisms. Remove the trees, and the system breaks. Sunlight dries the soil, rain washes nutrients away, and the land that once supported one of the richest ecosystems on Earth begins moving towards something much poorer, hotter, and drier. But the biggest early change would not happen on the ground. It would happen in the sky. The Amazon creates its own weather. Every day, trees draw water from the soil and release it into the air through a process called transpiration. Think of every tree as a tiny water pump. Now multiply that by hundreds of billions of trees. Together they release massive amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere. This moisture rises, forms clouds, and falls again as rain. But it does not only rain over the forest. Winds carry this moisture across South America. Scientists sometimes call these flows of water vapor flying rivers. They are invisible rivers in the sky, and they help deliver rainfall far beyond the Amazon itself. Parts of Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, and even distant agricultural regions depend on these atmospheric water flows. So if the Amazon disappeared, the flying rivers would weaken. Rainfall patterns would shift. Some regions would become much drier. Farming could suffer. Hydropower systems could weaken. Rivers could shrink. And cities that never thought of themselves as dependent on the Amazon would suddenly realize they were connected to it all along. The forest was not just receiving rain, it was helping create it. Without the Amazon, the land would heat up. Forests cool the planet in several ways. They provide shade. They release moisture. They move water from the ground into the atmosphere. And when that water evaporates, it cools the surrounding air. This is why a forest feels cooler than a car park on a hot day. Now imagine removing that cooling system from an area almost the size of a continent. The result would be a regional heat shock. Daytime temperatures would rise, the air would become drier, cloud formation would decrease, and the dry season could become longer and harsher. This matters because the Amazon already faces pressure from drought, fire, climate change, and deforestation. Recent research warns that by 2050, a significant portion of the Amazon could face stress severe enough to risk crossing ecological tipping points. A tipping point is when a system changes so much that it cannot easily return to its old state. For the Amazon, that could mean parts of the rainforest shifting toward a drier, savanna-like ecosystem. Not instantly, not everywhere at once, but slowly, region by region, until the forest becomes less able to protect itself. And that is the danger. The Amazon helps create the conditions it needs to survive. When enough forest is lost, the system may begin to weaken itself. Less forest means less moisture. Less moisture means less rain. Less rain means more drought. More drought means more fire. And more fire means even less forest. That is the feedback loop scientists worry about. Now comes the part that affects the entire planet: carbon. The Amazon stores huge amounts of carbon inside trees, roots, and soils. If the forest disappeared, much of that stored carbon would eventually return to the atmosphere. Not all at once, not like a single explosion, but through burning, decay, soil degradation, and land use change. Dead trees would rot. Microbes would break down organic matter. Fires could release carbon rapidly. And without new forest growth, the Amazon would no longer absorb carbon in the same way. This could turn one of the world's greatest carbon stores into a major carbon source. That would add more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. More greenhouse gases trap more heat. More heat increases drought risk. And more drought makes it harder for forests to recover. This is why scientists do not just see the Amazon as a forest. They see it as part of the Earth's climate system. Lose the Amazon, and the climate system becomes more unstable. The planet would not become uninhabitable overnight, but warming would become harder to slow. Weather extremes could become more intense, and humanity would lose one of its most powerful natural allies in fighting climate change. But carbon is only part of the story. The Amazon is also a library of life, and if it disappeared, many pages of that library would be burned before we ever read them. The Amazon is home to more than 10% of Earth's known terrestrial biodiversity. Some species are found nowhere else. Some plants may contain compounds that could lead to future medicines. Some insects pollinate specific plants. Some animals spread seeds. Some fungi connect forests underground in ways we are only beginning to understand. When a rainforest disappears, extinction does not happen one species at a time. It happens like a web collapsing. A tree disappears, then the insect that depends on it disappears. Then the bird that eats that insect declines. Then the predator that hunts that bird loses food. The system unravels. And once a species is gone, it is gone forever. You can plant trees again. You can restore soil. You can protect land, but you cannot recreate a vanished species. The Amazon is not just scenery, it is biological memory, and losing it would be one of the greatest losses of life in human history. Now let's move from animals and atmosphere to humans. A world without the Amazon would not only affect scientists and conservationists, it would affect farmers, cities, energy systems, food prices, and millions of people across South America. Reduced rainfall could threaten crops. Longer dry seasons could make farming less reliable. Rivers that support transport, fishing, and hydropower could weaken. Smoke from fires could damage air quality. Heat stress could make outdoor work more dangerous. And communities that depend directly on the forest would face cultural, economic, and physical displacement. Indigenous peoples have protected and lived with the Amazon for generations. For many communities, the forest is not just a resource. It is home. It is identity. It is medicine. It is food. It is history. If the Amazon vanished, the damage would not only be environmental, it would be human. A climate crisis, a biodiversity crisis, a water crisis, and a cultural crisis, all happening at the same time. So, would the entire Earth change? Yes, but not in the way some viral claims suggest. The world would not run out of oxygen, the atmosphere would not collapse in a day, and every country would not instantly become a desert. But the planet would become warmer, drier in key regions, less biodiverse, and more vulnerable to climate instability. The Amazon helps regulate rainfall. It stores carbon. It cools the land. It supports food systems. It protects species. And it influences atmospheric circulation. Removing it would be like removing a major organ from Earth's living system. The body might survive, but it would never function the same way again. And the scariest part is this: the Amazon does not need to disappear overnight for these problems to begin. They are already starting. Droughts are becoming more severe. Fires are becoming more dangerous. Deforestation has already changed parts of the forest. And scientists are increasingly concerned that some regions may be approaching dangerous thresholds. The real question is not, what if the Amazon disappeared tomorrow? The real question is, how much can we lose before the system stops saving itself? There is still hope. The Amazon has not disappeared. Large parts of it remain alive. Conservation still works. Deforestation can be reduced. Degraded land can be restored. Indigenous land rights can protect forests. Better farming methods can reduce pressure on new land, and global climate action can reduce heat and drought stress. The future of the Amazon is not fixed. It depends on choices being made right now. Because the Amazon is not only a victim of climate change, it is also one of our strongest defenses against it. Protecting it means protecting rainfall, protecting carbon storage, protecting wildlife, protecting people, and protecting part of the planet's ability to regulate itself. So if the Amazon rainforest disappeared tomorrow, Earth would survive, but it would be a different Earth, hotter, drier, poorer in life, and harder for humans to control. The Amazon is not simply the lungs of the planet, it is closer to the heart, pumping water through the sky, cooling the land, storing carbon, and keeping life connected across an entire continent. And if that heart stops beating, the whole planet feels it. So the question is not simply whether humanity could survive without the Amazon. The real question is, why would we ever risk finding out? The Amazon is not just a forest. It is a climate system, a water pump, a carbon store, a home for millions of species, and one of the most important natural systems keeping our planet balanced. If the Amazon disappeared tomorrow, Earth would survive, but it would never be the same again. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more mysteries of our planet, space, science, and survival, make sure to subscribe to Science Vault, because inside the Science Vault, we uncover the hidden forces shaping our world and the future of humanity. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.